It's time for another My Top 10 video, and this time we're going through my top 10 favourite Xbox 360 games. Hi again, hope you're doing well. Thanks for pressing play. I'm the man they call Pixel Paul, and this is my top 10 Xbox 360 games. So I'm going to have a look at 10 Xbox 360 games that I call sort of my favourite in that for that console. It was hard to choose actually because there's so many decent games, not just on the Xbox 360, but just across that whole gen. There was just so many amazing games. So it was a bit hard to sort of just pick out 10, but I have done. What I've done is, so there's a mix here of sort of Xbox 360 exclusives, and there are some games here which are also multi-format as well, so they're on PlayStation 3. But what I've done is I've chosen 10, and of the multi-format games, I've chosen those because I played them on the Xbox 360 first. So they were sort of my first memory of those games, playing them on the 360. Obviously, some of them I've played on the PlayStation 3 since, but I first played the multi-format games on the Xbox 360. So that's why I've chosen them for this top 10. I think it's a pretty decent top 10, and I think we should get straight into it. First up, number 10, and these are in particular order. So the first one, possibly the two, or the last two in the top 10, I should say, number 1 and number 2, are probably my two favourites. But the others are possibly in less of an order, if you like. But I will number them down from 10 to 1. And the first game I've gone for at number 10 is Fable 2. I'm not a huge fan of RPGs, not a massive fan of RPGs. I will play through them. I don't mind them, but they're not my sort of go-to game. Which you'd be surprised because all of that row there is practically Xbox 360 RPGs and JRPGs. But yeah, of them all, probably Fable 2, probably because it's so sort of accessible, I guess. And I played Fable on the Xbox before it too. And there was just something about Fable 2 that I just really enjoyed. I love the graphical style of it. It's very not cartoony, but it's not sort of ultra realistic. It just has this charm to it, almost British sort of charm to it. There's a lot of humour in it, and I just really found it really easy to get into Fable 2, and really enjoyed it. I was really disappointed with Fable 3. It was fine, but it seems to end really abruptly, I thought, Fable 3. But yeah, Fable 2, there was just something about it that I just remember playing it thinking, this is something different. I've not played something like this before, particularly. Certainly not on the Xbox 360 at that time. Because I originally played this back in whenever it came out now. Flipping heck, when are we going back to? There's no date on the box. I want to say about 2005. That's a guess. Probably a bad guess. But yeah, so Fable 2 is my number 10 in this list. And yeah, I do love that game. Very jealous of Xbox Series X owners who are going to be able to play the new Fable. Will that sway me maybe to get that at some point? Possibly. So number 9 is, again, so this is a multi-format game. I have played it on PlayStation 3 as well, but I originally played this on the Xbox 360, and it is Street Fighter 4. So I've always been a big fan of Street Fighter, especially for Street Fighter 2. Like, I'll be honest, Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 3 sort of bypassed me a little bit. So Street Fighter 4 was a sort of welcome return for me to the Street Fighter series, and I really enjoyed it. And it's one of the few games that I've sort of played online as well. I don't play games online that often, if ever, to be honest. I've not played an online game for a long time, I don't think. Probably the last time was a FIFA game. But Street Fighter 4, I put some hours into this online and really enjoyed it because I actually started to get quite good at it. But yeah, it's just an amazing game again. Love the graphical style on it. It's there's some amazing characters on there as well. And that, having said that, I always default to Ryu. I don't know why, he's just my go-to character, followed by Chun-Li. But yeah, Street Fighter 4 is my number 9. Swiftly on to number 8, and yes, I had to have this game in the top 10 because it is genuinely one of my favourite games. I would probably go as far to say it's probably in my sort of top 20 games ever. and that game is Gears of War. So this was the game that persuaded me to get an Xbox 360 originally. It's the game that I got with my Xbox 360, and it was kind of my introduction to, I suppose it was called like HD gaming, and it blew me away in the same way that kind of like say Mario 64 blew me away with this sort of 3D graphics back in the day. Yeah, Gears of War sort of had that same effect where you saw the level of detail in some of those opening missions, and you sort of realise, wow, HD gaming, it's the future, man, it's the future. We've moved on slightly since then, but yeah, and it sounds strange because it is just basically sharper graphics, isn't it? But just as the game itself, it's not the most complicated game, and it's very much just action, shooting, violence, and explosions. And to be honest, that just suits me right down to the ground. I like that kind of game. Dumb but fun. But yeah, Gears of War spawned however many sequels we're on now. 5, Judgment as well, Gears Tactics, all those other games. But yeah, just an absolute classic. So I do love Gears of War, and that is my number 8. Now, number 7 is possibly a little bit of a wild card. And why is it a wild card? Well, because it's one of those games which, it was an Xbox 360 console exclusive, I think. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It may have come out it did come out on PC as well, but console exclusive. It had fairly decent reviews when it came out originally. There was a sequel that wasn't a sequel, and I don't think enough people have played this game, and considering how cheap you can pick this game up for as well, I still think it's well worth a look. That game is Prey. Yes, it's one of the cheapest games you can pick up for the Xbox 360 at the moment. But I just always remember this game. I just remember having played it and really enjoying it, and just loving how sort of different it was. So obviously it's kind of hard to, well, it's not hard to explain. It's a first-person shooter. Basically you play like a Native American character there. Is he called Jesse? If I remember right, I think he was called Jesse. And he and his girlfriend are basically abducted by aliens, taken up to a spaceship to the sound of Don't Fear the Reaper, which I love that bit. I think that's just a very clever moment in the game. And from there, you battle against loads of aliens and biomutants and that sort of thing. But the thing that sort of steers it away from your normal first-person shooter, or first-person shooters from that time, was the sort of the use of portals and the gravity effects, and yeah, it was something different back then. So you know, you can find yourself walking down one tunnel, and then you'll come back and flip and be walking on the ceilings down the same tunnel, and just a really clever use of sort of level design. And yeah, I just really loved Prey. It just seems to be one of those games that people possibly dismiss a little bit because it just kind of came and went without any fanfare. And like I say, it did get a sequel, which I have got and I've never played, but I know it's not the same game. It's not really a sequel to this, which is quite sad, really. But if you've never played it, I think it's well worth a playthrough. I think it's really clever. Yeah, there's other games that do it differently and maybe do it better now, but for its time on the Xbox 360, I think that was a really decent game. Prey. So that was my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So we're on to game number 6, and I had to have a Halo game. There's a few to choose from on the Xbox 360, but I've gone for Halo Reach. This is my go-to Halo game. I just really enjoy it. It's just a little bit different from the rest of the Halo series with the squad members and a slightly different sort of approach to levels. And I just like the story too. I just think it's a great story, Reach. And yeah, a great entry to the series, that one. So that is my number 6. I've lost count already. Yeah, number 6. And then next up, again, another first-person shooters. And there's a few first-person shooters here. No, there's only one more, perhaps. But this one, I think you can genuinely call a genuine classic, or maybe even a masterpiece, because, yeah, it is, really. BioShock on the Xbox 360. Originally, I think BioShock was an exclusive for the 360, certainly for a couple of months anyway. And after Gears of War, BioShock was probably the next game to really wow me, because it was just, again, so sort of different. The setting for it in the underwater city, the sort of story driven element of being sort of stranded at sea, finding this lighthouse, going to this underwater city and seeing what chaos had happened and trying to unravel the story. Just amazingly brilliant, amazingly clever. I do kind of like games set with an ocean setting, so it kind of does resonate with me a little bit as well. But yeah, BioShock, just an incredible game. The use of plasmids alongside the normal sort of standard weaponry, just amazingly well done, well balanced. And yeah, I just love BioShock. I just think it's amazing. Was there talk of a series? I think a film was mentioned at one point, but I think, was there a BioShock series due? Not sure. Let me know in the comments if I may be completely wrong there, but yeah. Also, my first steelbook for the Xbox 360, that one as well. Very nice tin, very nice steelbook, that one. So yeah, that is my number 5. To number 4, and I mean, if you watched any of my sort of videos over the last nearly year, you probably have heard me talking about quite a few of these games already. So it's possibly the first two anyway, so I might not go into too much detail with them, but I've not mentioned this game that much, and that is Alice Madness Returns. So that is my 4th favourite, and it is probably my 4th favourite game on the Xbox 360. Amazing game. Rough around the edges. Visually, it's a little rough around the edges. But again, level design and the sort of imagination that goes into this game. Yeah, incredible game. Incredible game. So dark. Essentially a 3D platformer at heart. And there's not a huge amount more to it than that. It's a 3D platformer. But yeah, it's just an amazing game. It's really creepy. Very well done. Like I say, graphics are a little bit rough around the edges on some levels. I've never played the original Alice, so yeah, it's probably a game I would love to maybe try and play on something. I'm not sure what you can get it on, but yeah, the sequel is just an amazing game. Who'd have thought it from an EA title as well? But yeah, love it. Alice Madness Returns. This has gone up in value recently, so it is worth picking up though. I think it is that good. So number 3, and this is a game that I have mentioned once or twice. I've certainly mentioned it on Instagram a lot, because I think it's well, I think it used to be an underrated gem or an overlooked gem, but I think there's a lot more people now become aware of this game, and it is Split Second Velocity. So easily one of my favourite, if not my favourite, racing game of all time. I do prefer racing arcade games, arcade races, to sort of sim games, the more sort of serious races. I will take a Ridge Racer over a Gran Turismo any day. But Split Second is just an utterly mental racing game at heart. It's just, it's one of those games you have to really play, because it's very hard to describe. The only way I usually describe it is if Michael Bay made a Fast and Furious film on Red Bull. Something like that. Basically, if we think of it like that, you basically race around in these cars. You can trigger sort of action points around the tracks. So buildings will explode, and that will mean that tracks will change, and you'll have to sort of jump over certain areas. And yeah, it's just hard to explain, but there are sort of different races or different race types as well. So you can have, I always want to call it a juggernaut, but I don't think it is a juggernaut. But there's basically a circular track where you have big rigs dropping oil barrels out the back of them, and they explode, and you have to basically just go past as many of these rigs as you can whilst racing these other cars on the track. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's really, really good fun. Chaotic, but good fun. So I do love Split Second Velocity, and yeah, well worth a look if you've never played it. So my second favourite Xbox 360 game of all time. Now this is a game that I have mentioned a few times on different or various videos, and yeah, it's a series that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, perhaps. I played the original, thought it was okay. I played the second one, which was on the Xbox. Again, it was okay. It just didn't quite click with me. But when I played this one, yeah, it's one of those games that just sticks in the memory. And that game is Deus Ex Human Revolution. So yeah, a game that I've only actually played. I think I've played it twice, to be fair. I was going to say once, but I have played it twice because I played it on the PlayStation 3 as well. And it's just an incredible game. It's again sort of very story driven, tight, slightly cross of genres. So it's first person shooter. There's elements of RPG in there as well. There's stealth elements. It's just a very clever game. But I think the thing that I always remember about this game is the score as well. I just absolutely love the soundtrack to this game. I just think it's amazing. But yeah, production values are brilliant on it. The voiceover work is great. The character designs are great. The weaponry is great. There's just so much going for this game. And again, it's kind of sad that not a huge amount of people played this game, which is a shame. It did get a sequel, Human. Oh gosh, I can't remember what was the second one called. Humankind Divided, Mankind Divided. I think I got there in the end. Mankind Divided, which wasn't quite as good. That didn't click with me for whatever reason. But Deus Ex Human Revolution, easily my second favourite Xbox 360 game. It probably would be my first Xbox 360 game favourite if it hadn't been for what is my favourite. So my favourite Xbox 360 game, and most of you who have been fans of this channel for a while will know that my favourite game of all time is Mass Effect 2. I've spoken about this game so many times on this channel that there's not much more I can say about it, is there really? I adore this game, everything about it. Again, it's not a sort of genre that I'm a massive fan of, but again, this game just sort of clicked with me. I love the soundtrack in it, the setting. I do prefer sort of sci-fi settings in games to sort of fantasy settings with dragons and knights and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just adore Mass Effect 2. I just think it is the greatest game of all time. And I played it first on the Xbox 360. Gosh, I can't even remember I can't remember what year it came out. Nope, it's gone. 2010. Wow, so nearly 14 years ago. And yeah, I mean, I've played this now, not this version necessarily, because I've played it on the Legendary Edition, but I do tend to play this every other year maybe, and give it a playthrough on the Legendary Edition. And yeah, just love it. Mass Effect 2 is my top 10 Xbox 360 games. Love every single one of those. I could probably have picked another 5, maybe another 5 on top of that, but that's the 10 I've gone with. So in the comments, I want to know what your top 10 Xbox 360 games are. Let me know in the comments. Give me your top 10, give me just your top 1 or top 5, whatever you want to do. Just let me know your favourite Xbox 360 games. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscription button, and I will see you next time.